Imagine this: the clock strikes midnight. The room is quiet except for the hum of your phone screen glowing in the dark. You had promised yourself that today would be different, that today you would finally begin that important project. You even planned it perfectly in your head: the schedule, the breaks, the reward at the end. And yet, instead of writing the first line, instead of taking the first step, you spent hours scrolling, checking videos, wiping down your desk until it shone, reorganizing your bookshelves as if their neatness could replace your own clarity. Now the day is gone, your work untouched, and what remains is not relief, but guilt-thick, heavy, suffocating guilt. Sound familiar? This is the human condition of procrastination. We call it laziness, we call it distraction, but at its core, it is neither. It is a psychological trap, an invisible net we weave for ourselves, a resistance that grows stronger the more we try to ignore it. It does not simply rob us of productivity. It robs us of purpose, of self-respect, of the precious hours of our one finite life. But what if I told you that this struggle, this intimate battlefield between what you should do and what you actually do, was not only understood more than a century ago, but dissected and redefined by a man who lived far from our digital age, a man who knew nothing of phones or social media, but who understood human hesitation at its deepest root, a philosopher whose ideas still carry the power to break us free from this cycle. His name was Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche is often remembered for his shocking statements: God is dead, become who you are, or his image of the Bergmensch. But behind the provocations, he was a man obsessed with action, with becoming, with the raw power of turning will into reality. He was not merely a thinker in a library. He was a man who walked through illness, exile, and loneliness, and yet produced some of the most electrifying works of philosophy the world has ever seen. And so, in this journey, we will walk with Nietzsche not in the dusty corridors of abstract philosophy, but in the living, breathing struggles of everyday life. We will uncover 13 transformative ideas he left behind, ideas that do not simply tell you why you procrastinate, but show you how to end it permanently. Stay with me until the very end, because the final insights, the 13th, is not only the most powerful, it has the potential to forever change how you see yourself and your future. Now, why Nietzsche? Because while modern psychology often treats procrastination as a matter of productivity, Nietzsche approached it as a matter of existence. For him, the problem was never simply getting things done, but becoming who you are meant to be. He saw in every hesitation not just wasted time, but a rebellion against your higher self, a fracture in your will. And here is where our story begins. To understand procrastination through Nietzsche's eyes, we must first understand his central vision of life, a vision built not on comfort or safety, but on power, struggle, and transformation. We must step into what he called the will to power, because only when you see procrastination not as a bad habit, but as a war within the soul, can you begin to fight it with the seriousness it demands. If there is one phrase that captures the heart of Nietzsche's philosophy, it is this: the will to power. At first glance, it sounds aggressive, almost political, as if Nietzsche were describing the hunger of kings or generals. But he meant something far more universal. For Nietzsche, human beings are not creatures who simply seek comfort, or who move like animals toward pleasure and away from pain. That, he argued, is far too shallow to explain the mystery of our existence. Instead, beneath our desires lies a deeper drive, the urge to expand, to create, to overcome ourselves, to master not only the world but the self. It is not comfort we crave, but growth; not safety, but the fire of becoming more than what we were yesterday. This, for Nietzsche, was the will to power. Now pause and think. When you procrastinate, is it truly because the task is too difficult? Or is it because, somewhere deep within, your will has become fragmented? Because you have lost touch with that inner current that longs to expand? Modern psychology echoes this. Researchers speak of ego depletion, of fractured motivation, of the way our minds splinter when faced with uncertainty. We mistake this fragmentation for weakness, for laziness, but Nietzsche would say it is a rebellion of the will itself. The self you are now is resisting the self you could become. Consider how this plays out in daily life. You sit down to write, and a part of you burns to express your thoughts, to shape something meaningful. Yet another part, the weaker self, whispers for distraction, for escape, for the easy pleasure of screens and noise. This is not a small inconvenience. It is a civil war of the soul. Nietzsche's radical claim was that the strongest individuals are not those who avoid this war, but those who step into it willingly. To him, struggle was not proof of failure, but proof of life. He once wrote, "You have your way, I have my way. As for the right way, the correct way, and the only way, it does not exist." In that sentence lies the challenge. There is no universal map. Your power is not found in imitating another, but in claiming your own path, even when it cuts against resistance. And here lies the twist. Procrastination is not simply avoidance, it is, in Nietzsche's terms, a form of inner rebellion. It is the part of you that resists becoming who you truly are. Each delayed task is not just a failure of productivity, but a rejection of destiny. Think of history's great creators, painters, explorers, composers. None of them worked because they were free from resistance. Beethoven was nearly deaf when he composed his most magnificent works. Dostoevsky wrote under the weight of exile, poverty, and illness. Michelangelo carved David from a block of marble that others had abandoned as flawed. Their greatness came not from the absence of resistance, but from their refusal to yield to it. Nietzsche saw in such lives a reflection of his central principle, the will to power. They acted not because the path was smooth, but because the storm itself was their calling. And so he would say to us, the question is not whether you feel motivated, but whether you are willing to act, despite the fracture within you. Because in those moments of hesitation, when you hover between beginning and escaping, you stand at the threshold of your higher self, and the choice you make is nothing less than the measure of your becoming. One of the most radical ideas Nietzsche presented was this: the strongest people are not those who are free from struggle, but those who embrace it. In a world obsessed with comfort and convenience, this is a jarring proposition. We are taught that success comes when we find the right conditions, when everything falls into place. But Nietzsche scoffed at this idea. He believed that greatness was not born in the absence of difficulty, but in the ability to act in spite of it. Think about it. How often have you waited for the perfect moment to begin something important? How many times have you said, "I'll do it when I feel more motivated," or "I'll start once I'm in the right headspace"? But what if motivation never comes? What if waiting for the perfect conditions is nothing more than a trick your mind plays to keep you stuck? Nietzsche would argue that by waiting, you are already defeated. He wrote, "He who waits for the right moment is already lost. He who waits for motivation is already being ruled by it." The will to power, in Nietzsche's terms, is not about waiting for the stars to align, it's about creating the conditions through action. Motivation doesn't lead to action. Action leads to motivation. This is the essence of what Nietzsche called the will to power. It's the force that propels us forward even when the path seems steep, even when our minds and bodies scream for rest. It's not about seeking comfort, but about embracing the struggle as the very thing that will transform us. To him, resistance was not something to be avoided, but something to be conquered. This idea extends beyond the realm of procrastination. Think about the great figures throughout history: artists, philosophers, scientists, warriors who struggled through adversity to achieve greatness. Leonardo da Vinci, despite his genius, often suffered from crippling self-doubt. Albert Einstein, a man revered for his intellectual brilliance, struggled with basic math early in his life. These individuals didn't wait for perfect conditions. They embraced their imperfections, and it was through that struggle that they became what they were meant to be. Nietzsche's belief was clear. To become the person you are capable of being, you must step into the struggle, not shrink away from it. In a world that encourages us to avoid discomfort, to seek pleasure, and to always be happy, Nietzsche's philosophy is a radical call to choose the discomfort. It is through pain that we carve out our true potential. Just as Michelangelo saw the figure of David within the raw stone, waiting to be freed by the chisel. So, the next time you find yourself procrastinating, do not wait for the urge to work to magically appear. Act despite the resistance. The act itself will bring the motivation you need. In fact, it is often in the first step, that moment when you push through inertia, that your true self emerges. You see, Nietzsche's concept of self-overcoming is not just about conquering external challenges, but about conquering the internal resistance that keeps you from fulfilling your potential. The greatest victory is not just completing a task, but in becoming the person who takes action in the face of resistance. Imagine what it would look like if, instead of avoiding struggle, you leaned into it. What would happen if you stopped waiting for the perfect moment and simply started? Nietzsche's answer is clear. Through action, struggle, and persistence, you become who you are. The greatest trap that procrastination sets for us is the belief in tomorrow, the false assurance that we can delay action, that we have all the time in the world. How many times have you told yourself, "I'll do it tomorrow," only to find that tomorrow never arrives? Nietzsche saw this as one of the most insidious forms of procrastination, the illusion of infinite tomorrows. In his work Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche speaks of what he calls the spirit of gravity, the weight that pulls us down, keeping us from acting. This gravity is often disguised as the belief that we have time. We trick ourselves into thinking that we can push things off into the future, but this delay comes with a hidden cost. Nietzsche warned, "The snake that cannot shed its skin must perish." Waiting for the perfect time to act, waiting for some magical moment when everything falls into place, is like refusing to shed the old skin of procrastination. It is a kind of slow death, a stagnation of the soul. Think about it. Each time you delay, you become a lesser version of yourself. You lose pieces of who you could be. Every hour you waste waiting for the right moment is an hour you will never get back. And when that moment finally comes, it may be too late to reclaim what you've lost. This illusion of tomorrow plays a central role in how we view time. We live with the false belief that there is always more time, that there will always be a better day to begin. But in Nietzsche's view, this is a lie. Time is not infinite, it is finite. Each day is a precious opportunity, and once it is gone forever. Nietzsche's critique of tomorrow is not merely a philosophical argument, it is a call to live now, to act now, to treat each moment as sacred, as a window into who you are becoming. What if, instead of waiting for the future, you treated today as your only chance? What if you lived as if there were no guarantee of tomorrow, but only the certainty of this moment? The great figures in history understood this urgency. They didn't wait for perfect circumstances, they acted. Beethoven composed symphonies despite his deafness. Van Gogh painted masterpieces while battling mental illness. Michelangelo sculpted the David, despite the immense difficulties he faced. These individuals understood that every moment they wasted was a moment they could never reclaim. They lived with a sense of urgency, and in doing so, they shaped their legacies. For Nietzsche, to wait is to die a little. To avoid the present moment, to delay the task, is to deny the very life that is flowing through you. He would say, waiting is a kind of dying. The more you wait, the more you shrink from your potential. So how do we break free from this trap? The first step is to acknowledge the urgency of now. Stop waiting for conditions to be perfect. Stop assuming that tomorrow will somehow be better. The only time that matters is the present moment. You must act now, even if conditions are not ideal. Act despite the uncertainty, despite the discomfort. Procrastination thrives in the fertile soil of waiting. But if you reject the illusion of tomorrow and face the present with the courage to act, you disrupt the cycle. You step into your power. You stop being a prisoner of time and start becoming the master of it. Imagine if, every time you hesitated, you asked yourself, what if I never get another chance to do this? What will I have lost if I delay? This is the essence of Nietzsche's philosophy of time. He believed that each moment is a gift, a challenge, and a call to action. To delay is to squander this gift. So, what will you do with today? Will you wait for tomorrow, or will you shed the skin of procrastination and step into the fullness of your potential right now? What if you had to live this exact day over and over again, for all eternity? This is the powerful thought experiment Nietzsche introduced in The Gay Science and later in Thus Spoke Zarathustra. He called it eternal recurrence, and it's one of his most provocative and challenging ideas. Nietzsche asks us to imagine that every moment, every decision, every task we delay will be repeated forever. Imagine your entire life, your mistakes, your triumphs, your hesitations on an endless loop. The tasks you put off today will come back tomorrow, and the day after, for eternity. Would you still procrastinate? Would you keep delaying your work, knowing that each day is just a repetition of the last, an endless cycle of avoidance and regret? Eternal recurrence is not just a metaphysical speculation, it's a psychological challenge. Nietzsche uses this idea to ask us, are you living in a way that you would want to repeat forever? Think about the last time you procrastinated. What was the reason? Were you avoiding a task because it seemed too difficult, too mundane, or too uncomfortable? Now imagine that this task, this very day, will not pass. It will come back again and again forever. Would you still delay it? Would you still shrink from it? Or would you rise to meet it with the same intensity that you would give to a final moment of your life? For Nietzsche, this thought experiment is designed to break us out of our complacency. He wanted us to confront the reality that we are not merely living for today, we are living for eternity. Every decision we make is one that shapes our future and our identity. To procrastinate is to deny the sacredness of time. If you delay your goals, you are, in a sense, resigning yourself to eternal dissatisfaction. You are committing yourself to a life of endless repetition, never advancing, never overcoming. The power of eternal recurrence lies in its ability to make us see time as both precious and finite. Nietzsche believed that the way we live today has the power to define our future, but more importantly, it has the power to define us as we are right now. What would your life look like if you viewed each day as if it were an eternal recurrence? How would you act if you knew that every task you put off would come back to haunt you eternally? In the face of procrastination, eternal recurrence offers a radical reframe. Instead of waiting for some perfect future moment, act as though you are already living in the best possible version of your life. Your task today is not just one more thing on a to-do list, it is your chance to step into the life you want to create, to live as if this moment will come again and again and again. Eternal recurrence is a call to live with intention, with awareness, and with urgency. It forces us to reckon with the choices we make and the tasks we delay. Nietzsche's challenge is not just about the work itself, but about how we choose to live in relation to time. Imagine the tasks you are putting off today. Would you still avoid them if you knew that this day would repeat forever? Would you waste precious time scrolling on your phone, putting off the things that truly matter? Or would you rise to meet the day with purpose and passion, knowing that it is not just a fleeting moment but an eternal one? Eternal recurrence is Nietzsche's radical antidote to procrastination. It compels us to see our time not as something that can be endlessly deferred, but as something that must be lived fully and with intention. The question is not whether you feel ready to act. The question is whether you are ready to live your life as though it will repeat forever. And if it did, would you be proud of the choices you made today? This is Nietzsche's challenge, to live as though your life is eternal. And in doing so, you break the cycle of procrastination and step into the fullness of your potential. To become who you are, you must first destroy who you think you are. This Nietzschean principle strikes at the very heart of procrastination. In a culture obsessed with comfort and ease, we are taught to avoid pain, to sidestep discomfort, to seek the smoothest path to success. But Nietzsche saw this as a form of self-sabotage. For him, growth is not a gentle, painless process. It requires struggle, sacrifice, and discomfort. You cannot become who you are meant to be without first stepping into the discomfort of transformation. Think about the most important moments of growth in your own life. Were they easy? Did they come without effort, without moments of doubt and pain? Most likely, no. Real growth, whether physical, intellectual, or emotional, always comes with some form of discomfort. It's a law of nature. The seed must break through the soil. The butterfly must struggle out of the cocoon. Similarly, we must shed old layers of ourselves to emerge into something greater. Nietzsche believed that this discomfort was not something to be avoided, but something to be welcomed. When you procrastinate, you are avoiding the discomfort that comes with change. You are avoiding the discomfort that signals growth. Every time you resist doing the hard thing, you are resisting the very process that will make you stronger, wiser, and more capable. Next time you feel the urge to procrastinate, ask yourself, what is this discomfort telling me? Is it warning me that the task is too difficult, or is it a sign that I am about to push through to something greater? Embrace the discomfort, for it is through it that you will forge your true self. The more you avoid discomfort, the more you stagnate. But when you step into it, you step into the fire of self-overcoming, and through that fire, you will be forged into a new version of yourself, one capable of achieving your greatest potential. So, as you face your next task, see the discomfort not as an obstacle, but as a sign that you are on the right path. Growth is painful, but it is also necessary. And it is through pain that you become who you were meant to be. Nietzsche did not believe in routines for their own sake. He was not interested in rigid schedules or repetitive habits that serve no higher purpose. For him, routines were a means to an end, the creation of a life that is aligned with your highest values and goals. He admired the discipline of artists, poets, and even warriors who followed a rhythm and internal order that served their greater purpose. Their routines were not mindless repetitions, but sacred rituals that helped them achieve their highest potential. In this way, Nietzsche did not see routine as mundane. Rather, he saw it as a tool for transcending the chaos of everyday life. Think of your daily habits and routines. Are they serving you? Or are they keeping you stuck in a cycle of avoidance, keeping you from stepping into the life you want to create? Every decision you make, every task you complete, shapes your future. Nietzsche believed that the order you create in your life would allow you to rise above chaos and move toward a greater purpose. Creating a sacred routine is not about mindlessly following a schedule. It is about bringing intention to your actions. Every morning, when you wake up, you are presented with the opportunity to choose. Will you follow a routine that moves you closer to your goals? Or will you continue to live in chaos, hoping that somehow things will fall into place? Nietzsche would encourage you to design a routine that serves your higher aim. Does your routine reflect your values? Does it align with the person you are becoming? If not, then change it. Your routine is a reflection of your inner world. If you want to rise above procrastination, you must create an environment that allows you to thrive. Routine is not about being productive for productivity's sake. It is about alignment, aligning your daily actions with your higher purpose. And when you do this, you transform chaos into cosmos. You move from a state of confusion to a state of creation. Your life becomes not just a series of tasks, but a powerful, intentional path toward who you are meant to be. To live is to suffer. To survive is to find some meaning in the suffering. This is one of Nietzsche's most profound truths. In a world that often seeks to avoid suffering, Nietzsche understood that pain and struggle were not just inevitable, they were essential to growth. Most of us procrastinate because we fear suffering. We fear failure, rejection, and the emotional pain of not being good enough. But Nietzsche saw suffering as a force that could be harnessed, not avoided. If you want to break free from procrastination, you must first confront the suffering you are avoiding. What pain are you running from when you delay? Perhaps it's the fear of failure. Perhaps it's the fear of not being perfect, of being exposed as inadequate. But Nietzsche would say that these fears are not walls, they are doors. They are opportunities for growth. When you confront your fears, when you embrace the pain rather than run from it, you transform that suffering into strength. Pain becomes the raw material of your greatness. Instead of letting it paralyze you, you use it to fuel your will to act. Think of the most powerful people in history, the great artists, warriors, and leaders. They did not achieve greatness by avoiding pain. They embraced it. They learned from it. They let their suffering shape them into who they needed to be. Just as a blacksmith uses fire to forge steel, so too can you use your suffering to forge your strength. Every time you procrastinate, you are avoiding the very discomfort that will shape you. The next time you feel the urge to delay, ask yourself, what pain am I avoiding? How can I turn this pain into power? This is the key to unlocking your potential. When you stop running from discomfort, you begin to use it as fuel to propel you forward. Suffering is not something to fear. It is the crucible through which you are transformed. Embrace it, learn from it, and use it to become stronger, wiser, and more capable. Only then will you overcome procrastination and step into the life you are meant to create. Nietzsche viewed life not as something that simply happens to us, but as something we must create. He believed that each person is like a sculptor, shaping their own character through the choices they make, the actions they take, and the disciplines they embrace. He famously wrote, "You are not finished, you are becoming." This statement encapsulates his belief that we are always in the process of self-creation. To live fully is to recognize that you are not a fixed being, but a fluid, dynamic project, a work of art that unfolds over time. Each decision you make, each action you take, is like a chisel stroke, carving out the person you are becoming. In terms of procrastination, this philosophy serves as a powerful antidote. When you procrastinate, you are passively letting life shape you. But when you act, you actively shape your own destiny. Nietzsche's idea of self-sculpting is a call to take responsibility for your life, to stop being the passive observer and to become the creator. Life is art. How you live it, how you approach your tasks, how you embrace each moment, it is all part of the masterpiece you are creating. So, when you find yourself procrastinating, remember, what is this hesitation costing you in the art of your own life? The more you avoid, the more you let the world shape you. But when you act, you are actively sculpting your future, refining your character, and building the life you want. Each battle with procrastination is a stroke of the chisel. You are not simply finishing a task, you are defining yourself. So, take that first step and carve out the person you are meant to be. In Nietzsche's Thus Spoke Zarathustra, he introduces a figure he calls the last man. This person seeks only comfort, safety, and ease. He avoids struggle, avoids challenge, and above all, avoids risk. For Nietzsche, the last man is the embodiment of mediocrity, the person who has surrendered their potential to the allure of comfort. Nietzsche warned against becoming the last man. The last man does not strive for greatness, nor does he face difficulty with courage. Instead, he seeks only to preserve his own comfort, to live a life free from conflict, challenge, or change. The last man is content with the status quo, satisfied with the trivial and the mundane. In our modern world, the last man is not just a fictional character. He is a reality many of us face every day. Every time you procrastinate, you are moving closer to becoming the last man. You are choosing comfort over challenge, avoidance over growth. But Nietzsche would say, this is not living, this is merely existing. The real danger of procrastination is not just that it delays tasks, but that it invites mediocrity into your life. It's the slow, steady erosion of your potential. Every time you choose comfort over action, you become a little more like the last man. So, ask yourself, are you living to avoid discomfort, or are you living to transcend it? The path to greatness requires us to reject the pull of the last man. It requires us to step into the struggle, to embrace discomfort, and to rise above the mediocrity that holds so many in its grip. Do not settle for being the last man. Choose to be something greater. One of the most deceptive lies that procrastination tells us is that we need perfect conditions to begin. We tell ourselves, I'll start once I have more time, or I'll begin when I feel more motivated. But Nietzsche, with his characteristic sharpness, would argue that this is nothing more than a sophisticated excuse. He famously wrote, "He who cannot obey himself will be commanded." What Nietzsche meant by this is that if you cannot start now, if you cannot act despite the chaos, the resistance, and the imperfections, you will always be ruled by external circumstances. You will wait forever for the perfect moment, but that moment will never come. Perfectionism is a trick. It is a disguise that procrastination wears to keep you stuck. It tells you that you cannot act unless everything is perfectly aligned, unless you are in the right mood, unless the stars align, unless all the variables are in your favor. But Nietzsche would argue that this is not how life works. Every great work, every meaningful accomplishment, began as something imperfect. Beethoven did not compose his masterpieces on his first try. Michelangelo's David was not sculpted in a single stroke. They acted despite imperfection. They embraced the chaos and began anyway. The truth is that action precedes clarity. Perfection does not lead to productivity. It is productivity that leads to perfection. The more you act, the clearer your path becomes. So, stop waiting for the ideal moment. Start now, in your imperfection, because that is where growth happens. The longer you wait, the further you distance yourself from your true potential. Stop waiting for everything to be perfect. Start with what you have, where you are, and begin the process of creation. That is the only path to greatness. In one of his most famous passages, Nietzsche wrote, "One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star." What does this mean? To many, it sounds paradoxical. After all, chaos is often seen as something to avoid. We live in a world that values order, structure, and predictability. But Nietzsche saw chaos differently. For him, chaos is not a flaw, it is the very raw material of greatness. Creativity, innovation, and self-overcoming are all born from chaos. The scattered thoughts, the inner turmoil, the conflicting desires, all of these are the forces that drive us forward. It is in the chaos that we find our greatest potential. When you procrastinate, you are suppressing your inner chaos. You are trying to avoid the discomfort of the messiness that comes with creation. But Nietzsche would say that this chaos is not something to be feared. It is something to be channeled. The task is not to eliminate the chaos, but to organize it, to use it as fuel to propel you toward your highest potential. Consider the great creators, the visionaries of history. They did not wait for the storm to pass. They worked in the storm. They used their inner chaos to fuel their creativity. Van Gogh painted in the midst of his mental anguish. Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein while struggling with personal loss. Each of them harnessed the chaos within them to create something transcendent. If you wait for calm, you will never create. The chaos inside you is not an obstacle. It is a sign that you are on the verge of something great. Embrace it, organize it, use it as the fire that drives your will to act. In the chaos, you will find the spark that leads to greatness. Carl Jung, one of Nietzsche's intellectual heirs, spoke of the shadow self, the parts of ourselves that we deny, fear, or reject. Often, procrastination is a symptom of this inner conflict. The task you are avoiding is not just a chore. It is a confrontation with your own limitations, your own fears. It forces you to face the parts of yourself that you would rather not acknowledge. Nietzsche was deeply concerned with the question of becoming, not just who we are, but who we are meant to be. To become who we truly are, we must confront the parts of ourselves we hide from. When we procrastinate, we are avoiding these aspects of ourselves. We are running from the shadow self that we fear will expose our flaws, our insecurities, our weaknesses. But Nietzsche's answer to this is clear. Do not run from your shadow. The work you are avoiding is the work that will force you to face what you have been avoiding. And through that confrontation, you will grow. Ask yourself, what part of myself am I avoiding by procrastinating? What shadow am I refusing to confront? The task you fear is often the one that will lead to the most profound personal growth. By embracing it, by facing your shadow, you step into the life you were meant to create. You are not just overcoming procrastination, you are becoming whole. The shadow is not a curse, it is a doorway to transformation. Step through it, and you will emerge stronger, more complete, and more capable than ever before. Nietzsche rejected the idea that meaning is something you stumble upon. He believed that meaning is something you create. In his view, procrastination often stems from the feeling that a task is not meaningful, that it lacks purpose. But Nietzsche would challenge this idea. For him, meaning is not something that is given to us. It is something we must forge through commitment and action. To create meaning, you must first commit to something. You must choose a path and walk it, even when it seems unclear, even when the end is not in sight. Meaning is not discovered. It is created through struggle, through commitment, and through the will to act. The next time you feel the pull of procrastination, ask yourself, what meaning can I create through this task? How can I invest myself fully in it, regardless of how insignificant it may seem? The act of commitment itself imbues the task with meaning. By dedicating yourself to it, you are creating the meaning you seek. In this way, procrastination becomes not just a problem to solve, but a challenge to overcome. You do not wait for meaning to come to you. You create it through action, through commitment, and through the willingness to engage fully with life. Finally, we arrive at Nietzsche's most famous and often misunderstood concept, the Übermensch, or overman. This term is often confused with the idea of a superhero, or some kind of superhuman. But Nietzsche's Übermensch is not about external strength or power. It is about the transcendence of ordinary human limitations. To become the Übermensch is to transcend the herd, to create your own values, to rise above mediocrity, and to live authentically. It is not about achieving some final state of perfection, but about continuously striving, growing, and overcoming. The Übermensch is the person who refuses to be defined by societal norms, who lives according to their own principles, and who creates meaning in every moment. In the context of procrastination, the Übermensch is the person who faces their inner resistance, who steps into discomfort, and who embraces struggle as a path to growth. They do not procrastinate because they understand that each moment is an opportunity to create, to act, and to become who they are meant to be. To become the Übermensch, you must reject the ordinary. You must reject the comfort of the last man. You must create your own path, live by your own values, and shape your own destiny. And in doing so, you will transcend procrastination, transcend limitation, and transcend the ordinary. The question is not, what will you do? The question is, who will you become?